Hi, welcome to Midwest Magic Cleaning. My name is whatever, man. I'm not going to lie to you. I've had a rough 3 weeks, but I'm not going to bore you with that because who cares? But when I've had a rough time, one of the things that really helps me is finding something really dirty and just spin kicking it right in the neck until it pukes clean. And this week I have a friend who knows some people who had a house that I don't know if they rented or just let relatives or friends live there. The story's kind of vague, but it's vague on purpose because I don't really need to know the background story and I don't want to give a whole bunch of details. But what I will tell you is that they royally messed up the house to the point to where these people have been cleaning the aftermath after the other people moved out for weeks and weeks, maybe even months. There was trash and roaches and nastiness all over the house. They have spent ages trying to clean it up, and when they found out I needed some place local to clean, they were like, hey, let me see if we can do this. And thank God, because I needed to take out some aggression on some messes. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in the hardest room of the house, which is the basement, because that's a place where you have to carry up a bunch of stuff up some stairs, and it just exhausts you. You can get injured, which I fell down the stairs at one point and legit injured myself because I'm an idiot. And it just makes more sense for Jason and I to do it because we have the manpower. Also, I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but my cats are like going crazy through the whole house, so I'm not editing that out. Anyway, these people no longer live here and they've left just an absolute mess in the house. Now keep in mind that this house was cleaned into this condition, so this was much, much worse. We have carte blanche to get rid of anything that we want, but we're going to do like we do in most houses, where if we find anything that is really useful or expensive or sentimental, we're going to keep that stuff. Everything else goes in the trash. One interesting note about this house, it has a lot of stuff that ranges from the 1940s to about the 1980s. So there's an old 1940s dishwasher that the owner said that I could have, and it's still in really good condition. I don't want it because it's a dishwasher, even though I think it's still functional. I just want it because it looks super cool and it would be an awesome piece of decoration for my house. On top of that, there are a few, I think 3 deep freezes. They warned me not to open those up because somebody at one point was staying in the basement and they unplugged the deep freezes in order to charge their cell phones and never ever plug them back in, but there was food in it. When confronted about that, and they said, why do you not plug them back in? The person who was staying down there blamed the owners and said, well, why did you have food in there in the first place? So that's the personality type we're dealing with, or the aftermath of the personality type that we're dealing with. The condition of the house wasn't their fault. It was clearly the owner's fault. Unfortunately, sometimes those people do exist. Another interesting side note is that one of the people who lived here was a legitimate kleptomaniac. And as I was going through this, I found some items that legitimately belonged to the owner. Like, as I showed those items to them when they came over, they were like, wait, that's mine. How the hell did that get in here? Now, in this first video, and there's going to be a couple videos in this house, we're just going to work on the basement because this took us a couple days to do. So this is mostly going to be getting rid of trash, sweeping up, organizing the stuff that we're going to keep, and then we're going to go upstairs and clean the rest of the house, because even though they've cleaned that for quite a while and it's much better than it was, it still needs a once-over over the whole house. There's still roach poop all over the walls. The cabinets need to be done inside and out. The sink is really nasty. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we can do in there to do like legitimate rag in hand type of cleaning. Oh, hey, before I forget, totally off topic, but this last week we just hit, within the last few days actually, we just hit 700,000 subscribers, and holy crap, like, thank you guys so much. It's not only a huge milestone, but it means we're in the home stretch to 1 million subs. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, because at this rate we could hit 1 million subs by summer, and that is nuts. We'll finally get the gold plaque. Then I can drive to each and every one of your houses and let you touch it. I mean, with 1 million subs, that will be a long drive, and I would have to cross the ocean in several parts of it, but it'd be worth it. Now, something of note down here in this basement. I didn't really need gloves. Jason used some because he's smart. I could have used gloves, but it wasn't like something that I thought was entirely necessary. But I really should have had a mask on during this whole process. There wasn't any mouse poop. There was no bugs because the basement's a lot colder than the rest of the house. And so the bugs and stuff didn't survive down here. Or they were just annoyed to the point to where they're like, no, screw that. That's cold. I'll stay upstairs. But we swept up so much dust that I ended up coughing for 2 days. It felt like I had a cold. And when I was doing it, in the process of doing it, I even looked at Jason at one point and said, I really should have a mask on while I'm doing this. And then I promptly did not put on a mask. Anytime you're cleaning up a basement and garages to some extent, even if it looks like it's something that it's like, well, we'll just sweep it up and it's not a big deal. Do yourself a favor and put on a mask. There's so much dust over so much area that it will settle in your lungs and it will make you cough for days. It's just a bad idea to not put on PPE. I was entirely wrong in this situation by not wearing one. That said, fortunately, we didn't find a bunch of vermin and stuff. We did find one dead bat. I showed that to people on a members only live stream because they've earned dead bat privileges, but the rest of you I'm not going to show that to because gross. Also, bats are cute and they're much cuter when they're alive. There was a tiny bit of mildew, but there wasn't any mold that we saw. And then most of the stuff that we ended up saving were antique toys. There was an antique Schwinn bicycle from I think the 70s, if not the 60s. And then we actually found a legitimate jug of money. So we saved the money jug. Among the stolen things that we found were everything as simple as cups and spoons to a broom or two, a few hit and miss Christmas decorations, and one really nice ring.
Not a huge fan.
Now, I was told that the kleptomania was so bad that this person was a Catholic and went into a church, and I can't remember whether they said it was the Holy Water Bowl or one of the bowls that are set up for communion. They stole one of those things, just walked into a Catholic church. It was like, this thing's coming with me, and then just took it home. I'm sorry, I should not laugh about that, but I made the joke of like looking around their house and evaluating it and going, wait, is that Jesus? Hi guys. like they just stole a Jesus, a living live Jesus, and that he would be okay with it. He's just kind of chilling out. And I don't know why I made him speak like Barry White, like Jesus would be. What's up, guys? Mind if I make a sandwich? One of the side effect skills that I've picked up by doing this is being able to identify not just things that look sentimental, because some of those are easy, right? Pictures, documents, drawings of an old beloved house moose, but you become really skilled at figuring out what things have monetary value as well. So in the background of this video, you're going to see pop up occasionally this old looking rolly cart thingy. It's brown. And if you were there in person, it feels really lightweight and kind of shoddy, but that's from the 1950s and those things are highly collectible. Old metal Tonka trucks that we had were like a dime a dozen when I was a kid. Those things are really expensive now. When you find vases and plates, you can turn them over, and if they're just made in Taiwan, cheap knockoffs, or they have a barcode still stuck to them, they're usually not all that great. But you'll find stuff that is signed that is pretty great. You might pick up a Pyrex bowl or a Pyrex baking sheet, and if you flip it over and look for the Pyrex logo, if it's in all capital letters, it means it was likely made with borosilicate glass, which is the more expensive, more durable, more badass Pyrex. If it's in lowercase, it was made with soda lime glass, and those are the cheap knockoff throwaway ones. You might as well just toss those. As a guy, I know virtually nothing about purses, but over time, you find enough of them that you know not to just toss those. So obviously, if you pick up a Gucci or a Louis Vuitton, you know what those brands are because they're high designer names that everyone knows. But occasionally I'll pick up one and be like, hey, Jason, Google Balenciaga, and you'll see his face go from O to oh. So over time, as we're doing these houses, I've begun to store certain names and certain brands in my head as if you see this name, don't throw it away. Sadly, I found a lot of really expensive bags. We're talking like $1,200 purses in houses where they couldn't keep their electricity on. And I'm not going to suggest that they wasted all their money on this really expensive designer item instead of paying for their necessities in their house, because I've given away gifts that were really expensive, and the person I'm giving them to obviously can't afford them. But whenever I find those in a place like this, my brain automatically goes to, I wish they would have known where this purse was, because they could have sold it for $1,000 and paid up all their bills. I think my favorite part of this whole process is doing a sort of archaeology in the house, because as you go down through the piles, the trash gets older and older. So the top layer is going to be the newest people who live there. And then as you go down through the collectibles and the trash, you find older and older stuff, and it tells a history of the house. So for instance, in this house, you can tell that younger people live there because there's a lot of things that you'd find in the house of, say, a 20-year-old or a 20-ish person. Lots of takeout boxes and pizza boxes, vape pens, easy to make microwavable meals. Now, that's not saying that you don't find this through all age groups. It's just this one happens to line up with what I know of the history of the house. But as you go further back in time and you go deeper, you find things that older people tend to do, which is canning green beans. There was a lot of DIY equipment, so nuts, bolts, screws, paint, glue, extra parts for plumbing. You can tell that the person took care of the house on their own, and that's why the house is still in such great condition. In one section of the basement, we found a whole bunch of baby stuff, so we knew a baby lived there, probably not on their own, probably with an older person. But we could also tell that that baby was likely grown at this point, because the stuff that they had, car seats, high chairs, and whatnot, were made in the 1980s, 1990s. Then some of my favorites is when you go back even further in time and you find the really cool collectibles like old electric train sets. In a house like this that kind of stays in the family, you can see generations grow up as you sift through the collectibles. So while you're watching me punch this basement right in the face, let's give a couple shout outs to some of my favorite channels. I found over time that we all seem to have the same taste in YouTube channels, and these are some of my favorites. Some of these you've heard of before and some of them you haven't. A brand new one for me, he's been around for a while, but I can't stop watching it. It's called Wristwatch Revival, and he just takes apart watches, cleans them, fixes them, and I don't know what it is about that channel, but it just absolutely puts me at peace, and it's really fun to watch. If you need something to kind of shut off your brain and just enjoy and relax, that is a really good channel. All the links for these channels will be in the description of this video, by the way, so suck it. The next one is called Rob Squad Reactions, and I am a sucker. It's my guilty pleasure to watch reaction videos, especially people who are listening to music they've never heard before, but I know from like when I was a kid. I love to see how they perceive the music, especially from a modern perspective. I love to see whenever I know there's a really cool part coming up and they're hearing it for the first time, I love to see what they think of that and to see their facial expressions. And Rob Squad is one of the coolest, most just personable people I've seen on YouTube. Super cool channel. Now, almost everybody on my channel already knows about this guy, but I'm going to shout him out anyway, and I have many times in the past. He's called Post 10, and he does everything from unclogged drains to clearing out beaver dams and culverts to stealth camping to camping in -0-degree weather. He tries really old, crazy foods. It's just, it's hard to explain why Post 10 is so awesome. But if you watch a few of his videos, you will understand why you just can't stop watching him. He is the most lovable, wholesome dude on the planet, and I could just watch his videos for hours, and in fact, I do. And the last one is one that people always ask me to shout out, even though I've shouted him out several times on the channel, and that's Flawless Cleaning Services. He does the most incredible outdoor cleanups you'll ever see. He's just a wonderful, awesome, selfless dude, and I think you will have hours and hours of entertainment just watching him help people. He's just great. Oh, and while I'm at it, one more note. I mentioned earlier that we crossed 700,000 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. At the same time, we crossed 200,000 followers on Facebook, and we're actually edging up on 10,000 on Instagram. So I think I'm going to start posting short reels on Instagram soon. I already use Instagram to post pictures of basically just me and my cats, but I think I'm going to start doing some reels for Instagram too. So if you haven't followed any of those, the Facebook, the Instagram, and all of that is linked in the description of the videos. I highly suggest that you use the links in my description of the video because there are a lot of fake accounts out there who try to scam people out of money. So if it's not linked in the description, the account's not mine. You're at a fake account. For those of you who don't know, I did a dual live stream with Dr. Scott Eilers last week, and I did post about this in the community section, but I'm going to leave a link to that live in the description. It was one of the funnest, most interesting conversations that I've ever had on a live, and in the last week, I have had countless messages from people saying that was one of the most helpful lives they've ever seen. It was definitely worth the watch, and I would absolutely do one of these again anytime Dr. Eilers wants to. Okay, all that being said, I can't wait for next week whenever we go back and do the entire upstairs of this house. It's going to be cool. We're going to actually break out some Kims, some rags, some scouring pads, Jason's face, and we're just going to scrub and scrub and scrub and get this place back to the condition it deserves to be in. Members, I will see you this Wednesday. Everybody else, I'll see you next weekend. Later.